What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Essential Scares podcast, the only show that dares to ask, is it essential? I am your host, Corbin, and with me today is Alan.
Good evening.
Bobby.
Ah!
We have got
visual joke for the audio podcast.
A great show for you today. We are going to talk about the Norwegian found footage fairy tale, Trollhunter. But before we get into it, Bobby has a spoiler warning.
I do. This will serve as your first one and only spoiler warning for Norway's Trollhunter. If you don't want Trollhunter spoiled for you, please skip to the time code ahead for our spoiler-free essential discussion. Trollhunter decides to be an allegory for climate change and colonialism, instead of a revenge film for all the people who are mean, which frankly is rude. Corbin?
Bobby speaks for the trees, let it be known. This was my pick for the week. I mentioned it.
I believe. Trollhunter, like internet troll.
No, I get it.
Get it?
Yeah.
You did a good one, Bobby.
It's funny when you explain the joke, right?
It gets
100%.
10 times funnier. This was my pick for the week. I think I talked about it when we did the Lake Mungo episode, but I really like found footage, and that was part of why I picked this one. This movie was a hole in my found footage dictionary, and I don't see people talk about it that much anymore, but when it came out, I remember it being very popular. After finally watching it from 10 years of self-hype, because I don't know that it delivered the way that I was expecting it to.
That's exactly how I feel. This is exactly how I feel.
I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it, but after just for some reason not watching it for 11 years, I totally didn't expect the movie that I actually ended up getting, and I wonder how much of that is the movie versus just me. But it wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all.
Well, yeah. Again, I have a similar experience. This is my first time watching it as well. And again, every time I'd mention it to anybody who's a person, except for Corbin, I'd be like, "You haven't seen Trollhunter? You should watch Trollhunter. It's pretty good. It's pretty good." And so I was expecting it to be something that was good. You know what I mean?
Pretty good.
There's been other horror movies that I've been told I should watch for a decent amount of time, and then it comes out. In Absentia is another movie that we'll probably get to at some point. That was not this, where I actually felt like it delivered to a certain bit. This, it felt pretty flat for me, honestly. I didn't like it that much. I was pretty bored for most of this movie. So, yeah.
I think for me, part of the issue actually is that for found footage, right? Usually found footage, even more so than a lot of other genres, really, really is a slow burn. I think the genre really lends itself to that. And this movie, A, doesn't have that at all. And B, the downtime between the troll sequences is not really fantastical, but also not really scary. It kind of feels like it's trying to walk this line not so successfully about what type of movie it actually wants to be.
I follow you on that. I think it could it where it doesn't. Yeah, no, I think I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know that I do.
Okay.
The thing that I noted a few times while watching this movie is it really does a lot of legwork to flesh out the lore of this particular version of Norway in a lot of interesting ways.
Yeah.
Just it fleshes things out in a way that that most found footage movies just don't have the scope to do, because they're generally much more focused, as opposed to you've got 2 or 3 kids get lost in the woods and they were killed by the Blair Witch. Oh boy, it's so focused on a specific instance of people, whereas this movie kind of I mean, we find out there's such thing as a troll security service, for example, which I was very into. Because like when I think through that, that to me says, okay, so we live in a world where mythological creatures exist. Cool. Does this then mean that in like Japan, you've got the dragon security service or the Japanese equivalent where you've got dragons you got to deal with because that's just a part of Japanese, mythology. That's kind of the direction my brain started going when they started going down that path. That kind of stuff was just interesting to me because it makes me think.
Building.
I did like the world building of this movie. I noted it a few times where I'm like, this really is like putting in. It puts work in that in a way that I wasn't at all expecting.
So I think that's something that happens in a lot of found footage films that doesn't work here specifically because I remember what 2010 special effects looked like. It was dated then, like it was not particularly good. So like I think that's one of the issues I really find with it, is like you're meant to believe this is real. Mm-hmm. But like I've seen enough like Dr. Bigfoot footage to like be like that's not real though. Like I'm into like that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like I like the weird. And it's like this just looks like somebody faked the thing for a thing.
I think that they showed too much, too quickly.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think that there is a way to do this movie with the same background information, which I did like. I like that like. For the most part, you're probably not asking a question that wasn't answered. I do appreciate that to an extent. But the very first time they go on a troll hunt, and the very first time there's a troll, you see the whole troll. And I think that was probably a mistake. Well, I guess not the very first time. The second time.
The troll died.
Yeah, the first time he gets bit and you don't see it, but like the first time they go out with the guy intentionally, you see the troll and the troll gets killed, which is what I meant. But like, so at that point you're like, I don't know, 35 minutes into the movie or whatever, and like, you've now crossed the bridge fully into almost being a fantasy movie because there's no room for horror anymore at that point.
Yeah.
You've now
they've given up the goose.
It's gone, right? You already know that trolls are real. You have seen the troll, and you now immediately know trolls are also easily beaten. And so any level of fear, I think, is like completely removed very, very quickly.
Oh, this may be, I think, the least scary movie we've watched so far for the show by a pretty wide margin.
I'd like to challenge that. Not the scary bit, but the fact that like you lose all intimidation after a certain point. I'm not saying I did, but I would say that they successfully recreate tension with like where they turn them into like the mob, like the little, like in the same way that a zombie movie does. Like zombies often do not survive very long, but when there's a horde of them, it's scary. Horde of little trolls was still like Jesus, and then with the giant one that like refused to go down.
I thought it was super cool. Like I did like it. I guess I.
But both those can be like again. I think the big one didn't necessarily work, but I'm also not scared of kaiju. Like in that way, like like it's too big or fantastical for me to actually experience. Like, you know what I mean? But
it's like outside the realm of.
Yeah, because I'm also like I don't know. I'm also like I'm a big guy myself, so like I've never been the smallest guy in the room, so I don't know if that like. It instills a certain fear in that way because it's just never happened for me, like but also like the entire scene where they're just deciding whether or not like where like the one dude who gets eaten, the cameraman Kale, I think like he gets like where he's like I'm a Christian I'm gonna die like that whole thing is that was kind of a scary little scene.
It was well done, that sequence. I liked it a lot.
I don't agree at all, actually. I think that scene kind of feels totally unearned because they set up that one of these kids is a Christian 20 minutes into the movie. Who of you is a Christian is what the guy asks. So we already know one of them is. And with how quickly Thomas and what was her name? I don't remember. The other character, they both very quickly were like, we don't believe in God. Like, I don't know. It just seems like, well, plus, and then all the shots they show of him like desperately trying to scrub himself down. It was like, oh well, obviously you're the Christian boy. You're gonna get 8 because you're gonna freak the fuck out. Like it just didn't really feel. I did not feel the tension in that scene at all.
So
Because it was so obvious to me that guy was gonna get 8 at that point because nobody had died yet.
So I think that actually brings up my biggest issue I have with this movie is it both shows, like Corbin says, and also tells too much.
Joanna
this movie,
is the woman's name.
Joanna, that's correct.
Yeah, this movie does this thing where like it wants to tell a message. It wants to tell 2 messages actually, and they kind of like really quickly ham fist that second one in because they don't think you're gonna get it. Even though you could really easily see that happening. They want to talk about global warming, and they want to talk or climate change, and they want to talk about colonialism, right? And like both of those things are apparently there, and you could cut out all the bits where they explicitly tell you these things, and you could still get the allegories. But they decide at one point or another to be like, yeah, the climate's really messing with these trolls, and they're migrating to shouldn't be, so we gotta kill them. And then they do the whole we genocided an entire troll like thing where it's like clearly that's what they're doing, right? Like there's like a bunch of moments like that where it's like, yeah, like we're not the good guys here, right?
Yeah.
Like they tell you too much, and then it becomes eye rolly. Like you can almost turn off the message at that point. I think that oftentimes having a very ham-fisted message can be important, but not for a movie like this. It just doesn't work.
I also think that for a movie with such a strong message for the trolls being like the real good guys, like the the peoples that have been done bad to, the hunter is absolutely still the guy that you're rooting for the whole time, and
he regrets doing the things that like he's doing, and like
But there's still like the big heroic moment where he kills the massive troll, and like you've been taught over the course of the movie that troll is super super old, and that like maybe he's sick, maybe he's not. They kind of go over that rabies thing for like 2 seconds, and there are some implications that like maybe those trolls could be saved, and they just walk right past it, and it's for a horror movie, like, do I care about that? I guess not necessarily, but it's strange only because they push the message just hard enough that it then feels strange.
Yeah, they don't push it hard enough to make you introspective, and they don't and they push it too much for you to be like, huh, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if they were trying to do this, right? Which is like, because that like either make you immediately introspective or like have to linger on that question. They somehow again they walk a tightrope of not doing enough, but also doing too much. For me, and where I was just like, plus like we're in an age where like we're already addressing those questions. So like again, this movie came out. I watched this movie 10 years too late. I might have thought that this was very prescient critique 10 years ago, but true. Now I'm just like we're beginning to discuss things like land back, and we're trying to still fight global climate catastrophe. So like, I don't know. It just didn't work for me right now. So in that way, but again, I think that there are moments in this that like make it feel like a genuine like student documentary. That like I think those bits kind of do work. Where like it's a bunch of kids like laughing, like the fact that they don't give a shit when Kale dies when they're all supposed to be college students. That I think would have been a better ending to it, of just being like, we can't.
I actually thought that was gonna be the end of the movie.
Here,
I was like, even though they obviously foreshadow the big troll at the very beginning of as soon as they talk to the hunter. I still thought when they killed Callie that it's like, oh well, I mean that's it. Like the big troll foreshadow was just a tease. Like that's not going to happen. Like the movie clearly is going to end now. But then it was like 15 minutes longer. They introduced another character literally out of thin air, and then they just to do the big troll, which was cool. But I don't know that it served the story.
I wonder if that was this movie that maybe I'm guessing this movie maybe actually was in Norwegian cinema, and I'm wondering if it wasn't something that tested with audiences that they wanted to
Oh,
see the
like if
big
they
troll.
added like I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah.
Alan, I know that you quite enjoyed the movie. I think we're being very middling, but I
I
think
just had a
Alan's
lot of
very
fun
positive.
more than
Yeah,
anything.
tell us
Like
about it.
I just I mean Bobby said he felt a lot of the in between bits were boring, and I think the big difference there is I enjoyed a lot of that world building side of things, and just also like the one thing I will say, beauty shots. Norway is a beautiful country.
Yeah.
Like you always know that because like I remember back in like
Fjords.
geography class, exactly seeing fjords, and you're like, wow, that's really pretty. This movie does a
Okay.
good job at just showing a bunch of cool Norwegian vistas. So
It's like
that was
almost a Norwegian tourism ad.
in a weird way, yeah.
If they spoke like Vikings, maybe, but they didn't, and it made me mad.
I couldn't even
One
pretend
of
to
the
understand what they were saying.
one of the other things is I really liked. It's kind of early when they're still like getting to know Hans, the troll hunter, and he's just like walking them through just stuff that he just talks as just matter of fact, like this is what it is in terms of like trolls and stuff. And he like describes this scene of a troll grabbing on trying to eat its own tail and then rolling down a mountain, and just that imagery to me is very funny. The idea of some like 15-foot monster just barreling down a mountainside in Norway, it just seems hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Another moment that makes you want to humanize the trolls, or like
Exactly,
or, like,
yeah.
animalize the trolls.
Yeah.
Like they're like dogs. You've seen a dog chase its own tail and get
Exactly. Yeah,
My dog
it's
did that.
it also lends itself to the fantasy element, right? I mean, a lot of the
Mhm.
world building is reaffirming or contradicting, right, fantasy fairy tales that you know about trolls.
and
I
they
think
explicitly
that's
call that out.
yeah,
Where he's like,
that's one of those
you
moments.
know
I think.
nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they still
it
do the
also
bridge troll, which I love. That was
okay.
my favorite part of the whole movie.
Well, and before that, I literally have a note written down that said, "My man's is looking under a bridge," because he does that in a previous scene too, where he's just like checking out what's under that bridge, and it's
Yeah.
just, those stories are born out of some amount of experience,
Well,
and I guess that's just the part.
The implication is some of the trolls like swim and shit, right? Because he
Sure.
talks about like there was like a bridge collapse because a troll bumped his head,
Right.
Yeah.
like trying to get out of the water. But I will say the bridge scene. This is like the one only notes I had. When like the sheep was like making the sheep noise that sounded like it was like crying for help. I felt so fucking sad in that moment. I was like, because like they foreshadow it, and I'm like, they're gonna just do this a bunch with a bunch of sheep, and it's gonna make me real sad and real angry against these trolls. But he only goes after the one, and it's really sad, and then they get the other two sheep free, and that was the most tension I felt the entire movie. To be completely honest, was whether or not these sheep were gonna be okay. Because I was fully assuming, because I knew, because I was watching this movie on a screen, and I knew that there was like 30 minutes left. I was fully expecting Kali to make it out of the cave scene. So that was like a shocking moment for me, because I was like, the guy behind the camera never dies first. He usually dies like last. That's like the whole found footage bit.
That's how it ends, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was like, Thomas is going to turn into a troll, which it just.
I was waiting for that too.
I
was like, oh,
Yeah.
he's
I
gonna
wrote
be
down-
a troll.
I wrote down
honestly,
there's
I
an
think
infection
he's
coming
better for it
100%.
to be like nothing. It's only rabies. Like that. Like
Yeah.
it's nothing like that. The trolls are actually a threat. It's just this troll has fucking rabies and like.
Which, like, okay, like that lines up with the messaging, but then like I missed the fantasy
feels like-
then at that point.
It feels like a letdown in the moment. I think I like it more that way. Like in all honesty, like
When the just reaching back really quick to the bridge troll scene, when the troll takes a bite out of the hunter's helmet,
And then just gives
I for a split second was like, oh, like they went for it, they're gonna kill him, and the movie's gonna get like scary again, and then they don't. It's just played for laughs. I was a little bit disappointed, but
yes, I agree with that.
yeah, I don't know.
Because again, the movie had got me all tensed up with the sheep thing. Like, and again, it's meant to do that. I know,
Yeah.
like I know you guys are all like cold, heartless bastards, but like most bleeding hearts like me want to see the little animals survive.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you're on the right side of the movie, right? The movie
yeah,
intended for you to feel that way. So,
yeah.
like, no,
And so
for
like
sure.
it's weird. It's weird that they don't pull the trigger.
I agree. And like I feel like going back to what I mentioned at the very beginning, like the movie is trying to walk between like horror and fantasy, and I think there's a few decisions where maybe it picked the wrong side. And I think that was one of them.
So this makes me think about like, do you think like this movie isn't, but do you think if they did that way, do you think they'd be like compared to like say Cannibal Holocaust, where like all of a sudden like we know that like these dudes have been chasing around this hunter and now the troll is fighting back and like
Hmm.
we're afraid, but like they kind of have a common, you know what I mean? Like because
Yeah,
they're like
maybe.
killing this thing.
I think it would be much more interesting, and
Yeah.
also align with their own message more strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I don't disagree with you. I
yeah,
just
for sure.
I know a lot of movies do not be compared with that movie because of all of the awful things that happen in that movie for real.
Right,
Uh,
but there's still a message there that was the right one, and that
yeah,
I think movies should take more inspiration from. And I agree. I think sometimes movies like don't want to, unless they're trying to be like a shock movie, like Green Inferno. Like
yeah,
they don't want a headline to be, you know, they don't want Cannibal Holocaust to be in their headline, right?
yes, yeah.
But maybe
Bec-
it's been 50 years. Like maybe they should.
Well, and I think right. It could even be an addition because again, there is a certain animal rights aspect to that like would be a welcome addition
Hmm.
to successors of Cannibal Holocaust
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with this one, like they make it a
because of
point to
all the
say
animal
that like
cruelty.
yeah, I like right. They make it a point that the trolls are not at their subhuman intelligence, right? Like they're like
Yeah.
smart animals,
Hmm.
but they're not, maybe like monkey tier intelligence. Uh,
Well, they make them seem like they're even more like they're like dog level. Like,
Yeah.
like
but yeah, so like, but like the point is that like if you've already really cemented them as animals and not a fantasy creature race that we've subverted, then you're then opening fully yourself to that allegory.
yeah,
They drove right past it.
because I compare things to things. That's what Bobby does for the podcast.
That's right.
But no, no, I agree. I feel like it would have been a cool job if we want to make this hardcore. This movie is in, but I don't. Corbin uses the word horror adjacent a lot. This feels way more horror adjacent than to me
Yeah, I agree.
personally,
Um,
despite it being like on horror lists. Like I
no,
don't know.
for sure. It feels more like nowhere. I'll say nowhere near as good quality wise, but in some similar ways as like Pan's Labyrinth ends up being on like horror lists, even though it's definitely not a
Mhm.
horror movie. That movie is very much a horror adjacent fantasy, and I think that
A
this
dark fantasy, you might even say.
I would. I think that this movie is more like that genre wise than
I think so too.
yeah.
I think putting this in like calling this like a dark modern fantasy is not an unfair comparison.
Mhm.
Um, and again I think I might even like this movie more if that was what I was
Pitched.
led to believe it was.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure. Like
yeah,
if I now after seeing it, if somebody
yeah,
asked me about the movie and I said, "Oh, it's a found footage like dark fantasy, it's about trolls," like they'd probably
yeah,
be like, "Oh, okay." They go in with you go in
yeah.
with
And then
100%
they'll
the
probably like it
right
more than I. Yeah,
mindset, and you probably
yeah,
like it quite a lot. And like I did have fun with it, right? I don't want to be a
yeah.
total Debbie Downer. Like
You don't want to be a troll? I'm sorry. I'm
so
sorry,
this
Bobby.
has been Essential Scares.
So it's funny you bring that up of just the expectations because I had none leading into this movie.
Oh
I
yeah,
did
I guess
not
that makes
know.
sense.
I mean, yeah, it's 10 years old. I can tell just by looking at when it came out. But like, I did not know
I
like
know it's 10 years
in
old because it said comma
it said
2010.
yeah, but like I had no contextual knowledge of like, hey, if you like found footage movies, which I also really enjoy, you need to watch Trollhunter. Never seen it. or never really had that context. I just went in going, okay, so it's a movie about a guy who hunts trolls. Cool. So I didn't have any of that like expectation going into it. I had none of that baggage, and I think that kind of shows in how much I just was like, oh, this was a fun movie. I had a great time watching it, compared to you guys having a bit more of a, well, that wasn't really exactly what I wanted.
I feel like even just like the cover art, the poster, you might have seen that poster and gone like, oh, the trolls in this movie are really big. And when I saw the poster, I'm still thinking, oh, there's a huge chance that there are no trolls in this movie, right? This is a horror movie, like the trolls aren't even there. And so I've been over the last 10 years, been slightly confused by the cover art because I figured it was a misnomer, right? They're trying to get you so hyped for the trolls, but the trolls are going to be something else. It's a scary movie, blah, blah, blah. Turns out the cover art is just exactly what the movie is. It's just big trolls.
Up until the moment the troll even jumped out of the fucking
into like the clearing.
I was like, oh, Hans is like a serial killer, and he's like slowly bringing these people out, like and like killing them.
Right. I really thought it was gonna go somewhere, and then a troll just comes out. I was like, oh, I totally have the wrong idea about this movie.
But I tried to read. That's why I said like there are some scenes that have some real tension. I tried to readjust in those moments, and then. Yeah, but again, no. As a dark fantasy, it's pretty fun. It
is fun. It also is very much PG-13. Like you could show this to anybody, like anybody that's willing to read.
Yeah, which
should be everybody.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Could not. I don't even know what anybody said in this movie.
I just know that trolls.
The one thing I wanted to bring up with that, and I don't know if we brought this up in other episodes, but. Does us not speaking Norwegian maybe cover up acting that we can't pick up on per se? Because I feel like a lot of like bad acting is a lot of like line delivery, and without having the context of that language, it's hard to go like, was that really delivered so well? You know what I mean?
I didn't like Kale's acting. I don't know if I like Helen. Joanna?
That's the girl.
Yes, Joanna. I don't know.
Will you steal her?
Haha, very good. Sunita coming next season to eat your ass.
Speaking of.
No, Joanna's was hit or miss.
I think you can
Thomas
tell. You can tell like emotion
Hans
and delivery.
Was standout performance of
for
this.
sure. For sure.
Hans was actually good. I liked watching Hans on screen.
Hans gave me vibes of, this is very specific, Gurman from Bloodborne. It's
okay. Yeah, no.
He has a presence that's very similar. And also, the first time you like see him, he's like walking away with this like light contraption in his hand, and he's got like a hat on, and he looks like a Bloodborne character, a Bloodborne hunter in that moment. And that could just be,
by the way.
Yes. Wonderful game. You should all play it. But I liked his design. Oh, don't even get me started, Corbin.
Coming to Essential Scares Gaming.
One day.
Coming when we decide to do it.
Yep. To answer your question, like, do I think that not knowing Norwegian impacted me negatively? No. I mean, I've watched a lot of foreign films. I watch everything with subtitles regardless of the language. I don't think that it impacted me personally. I think that you can, as anybody that watches anime will tell you, any cool anime person, not me, but other people, will tell you, is that you can still get it out of the original language.
I'm a pseudo-weeb. I would say
me too. I watch all dubs.
I'll watch sub anime. I just don't watch a lot of anime.
Yeah.
I watch more anime than most people, but not enough that we would consider me one of their own.
You watch like the ones you need to watch to like even be able to speak remotely in those circles, but not like, I've seen Cat Girl 9. It was great. I loved it.
I don't watch I don't watch the ones I need to watch. I watch the ones that I go, huh, that looks cool. So like I've watched, or like that looks interesting. So I've watched like Berserk, I've watched like Dragon Ball Z,
course.
but I've also watched like Tokyo Ghoul, which is like a flavor of the month for like a little bit, and I've watched all of it. And I also watched Free, which is a gay swimming anime. It's awesome.
I've always meant to watch one of those like sports animes because I feel like
Free is dope.
sports. I feel like they have. There's so many
It's
anime
mostly,
moments
like,
in
gay
sports.
romance, but like they don't ever. I'm not like totally up to date, so like I watched like the first couple seasons of it. But like this is a complete sidebar. But it's like the entire bit of it is like, will these two boys kiss? Will these two high school boys kiss? And they never do. But and then they do like cool anime swimming.
Of course.
It's great. I love Free.
I know there's a basketball anime, and I feel like, oh no, if I miss this free throw, everything's over. My girlfriend will dump me. I'll be dropped from the school. Like, it just lives up to those
like
those moments
old,
in a funny way.
Like YA sports books. Do you ever read those? Like,
Yes.
Oh,
they're very much like that, but like hyper like realized.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh,
And
never
like
mind.
so like yeah, I get that you can get the experience of it,
Yeah.
and you can get the emotion of it, because like even like drawn characters, you can see it. Like acting is a very physical thing.
Yeah.
So like yeah.
So no, yeah. To answer
Yeah.
your question.
Is there any character that you thought was poorly acted?
I mean, the characters are fairly hollow, minus Hans and maybe Thomas. I mean, I wouldn't say I picked up on the bad acting per se. I more so was just, as I was watching it, what spurred me on with that question is I was like, okay, so I'm reading the subtitles and trying to like put one and two together, connect the inflection with what they're saying and reading and all that. And it just kind of came to me, and I'm like, I mean, am I missing if there's good or bad acting here? Like I just asked myself the question, like, am I missing the context of the minutia of the language in such a way that I'm missing something from what's happening here? Maybe not. It was more so I was just thinking along that line, just because, I've traditionally watched movies in English and don't have subtitles to read.
I think what this is telling me is that you need to watch more foreign films.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's not bothered me in the two that I've watched for the show. Like, I haven't had any issues reading subtitles and watching the movies.
Listen, it's well known that I can't read.
It is known.
Yeah, it's known that and even I take the time to read the subtitles of and I don't know. This is actually my controversial horror opinion. I prefer watching all movies with subtitles.
I watch everything
I like
with subtitles.
I like
Literally
reading it
everything.
on the page. I think I'm not a good actor, but I did acting up until even now. I still like community theater every now and again. I like reading it on the page and being like, how would I interpret this line? And then listen to the actor who got paid to do it. Like, yeah, that's better than how I would have done it, and then move on.
And that's why he's there and I'm here.
That's why I'm on this podcast. And he's making the dash, baby.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that subtitles are integral.
It's a controversial opinion in this fandom, I know, but I like subs, because sometimes bad subs will ruin it, like because it'll be just like a second ahead. A good subtitle job though, that gets me good.
So good.
For me, they're take it or leave it. I don't overly care. I mean, I've known Corbin for years. I know he's a subtitles kind of person, so that's probably why I don't care, because I've just seen them in passing so many times. But it's like in my personal watchings of anything, I never have subtitles on. But then if I were, I just don't see the point. Like if it's a language I understand, I don't personally care to have them. But if they're ever on, it's just like, oh well, subtitles are on. I don't care.
I'm definitely at the point where, like, if I'm at somebody's house and like we have a movie on, it's like I'm missing probably 30% of what's going on if I'm not totally focused, because like subtitles allow me to multitask a little bit, more easily rewatch stuff, watch stuff like during the day, like when life is going on. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just
Oh, I get the pros of it, of just like
Yeah.
having, if the volume isn't super loud, but you can still know what's happening. I get the pros. I just still never use them at my house.
Yeah, man, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Live
That's
your
fine.
life.
Well, but speaking
Exactly.
of things that
Are
you
written.
do in your house, you score the movies that we review on this podcast in your.
This is true. Now, how do we score this, Bobby?
What would you score it? Oh no. You know what? You sniped me. I'll take it. I think I'm going to give this movie.
It is known that we score movies on a 0 to 5 scale with half points allowed, and it is doubly known that Bobby has made it previously known, as well as I have, that a 1.5 is an enjoyable bad movie and a 2 is a bad regular movie. And I bring it up because I see his face deciding between probably those two scores.
You're wrong, actually.
Oh,
It's a different decision
okay.
because it does not belong in. It does not belong. I think it's a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay.
Which
Ooh.
is different than a 2, which means I didn't hate it. I also did not particularly like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a 1.5 where it was like this was bad, but I had some fun with it. And it wasn't a 2 where I was like as I reviewed this movie, I realized that there were bits that I liked, so I'm gonna give it a 2.5. It's fine. It's okay. If it was properly explained to me, it might have been a 3. In all honesty, but probably never higher than that. It's really, again, if you like it, you like it. No fucking harm to you. It just wasn't that good to me. So 2.5. I understand why you wouldn't.
I'm gonna go next because my score is also a 2.5. I knew I couldn't give it lower than that because I'm kind of in a similar place as Bobby with the scale, and I don't think it was bad. I actually thought that a lot of parts were really fun. I would watch it again, no problem. Like if somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to watch Trollhunter?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure." But I wouldn't be, "Oh my god, yes." I would just say, "Yeah, sure." Right? And I think that is just it's just average, right? It's not terrible. It's also not great. One big negative for me, honestly, the thing that stops it from being a 3, as a huge fan of found footage, this movie does not utilize its found footageness, and actually it takes away from it several times because when it is filming, there's a lot of micro cuts that feel very much like a regularly edited movie. And I think something that makes one of the things about found footage that's really cool is there's a lot of long shots. And this movie has none, basically. It's a lot of little cuts. It's a lot of night vision, night vision, normal vision to like kind of like skirt around it. And it makes it feel fake and it makes the found footage level feel worse. And I think this movie would have been better not being a found footage. That's my opinion. So 2 out of 5. 2.5 out of 5. Sorry.
Just to address that because we didn't talk about it earlier. I didn't even realize it until you said it, but yeah, that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2.5. Had fun.
So I'm a little warmer than my buddies here. I'm at a 3.5.
Okay.
But just a point higher. I just basically had a fun time watching this movie. There's no way around it for me. I was just thoroughly enjoying my time with it. I thought seeing Hans for the first time, he's just kind of this weird dude. These college students just trying to make a silly documentary. Like it I don't know, it worked for me in a weird way. I think it has unintentional humor that works for me, specifically at the very end when I have to get this in while we're still in spoilers territory. The prime minister's like, this is Norway. We have trolls. Just like says it. That funny. I laughed quite a bit at that. Just it. Is it the best movie we've watched? No, not even close. But it just was fun for me. It's. I don't have much more of an in-depth review than that, but I just had fun watching it.
Sometimes I think it's important, and as critics, sometimes you skip over this. sometimes I think it's important for a movie just to be fun. I think there are movies that you're just like, that was just fun,
Yeah.
and like, I mentioned it, it's not reflected in my score, I guess. 2.5 is pretty low, average, I guess. But like, I did have fun with it. Alan had more fun. That is
I had no
for sure.
expectations either. That's, I think, the key thing, is there was no expectation on my end of what this movie would be. So I think that by itself is mostly where the point comes from, because
sure.
I just had Trollhunter. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, 10 years of passive hype will do a lot to a movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And speaking of how
trolling.
much, absolutely, how much something can do to a movie, Bobby,
Yeah.
spoiler free.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think this movie is essential?
So spoiler free, but I'll mention it again for those of us who did not listen to the spoiler guys. This movie has been recommended to me for a decade. It's just been something that, like, passively I'm like, oh yeah, Trollhunter will get mentioned once every couple of years. I'm like, yeah, I actually never saw that. You should. It's pretty good. And I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. So I don't necessarily get the hype. And in all honesty, the longer these 10 years have gone, the less and less I've heard about it. So no, it's not essential. It's kind of like one of those movies that I like in sincerity, like that. It's like, it's pretty good, and it was pretty fun. Like, but it's just not something that anybody is ever going to be super involved in, right? It's like what's a movie that, like, I could, like, throw under the bus that we'll probably we won't review. What's the Firestarter, with what's her face with the young
Barrymore.
Barrymore. Yeah, like, you don't remember that movie, but it's not bad. It's fine, right? Or that one movie that's got Christopher Walken and the guy who played Aragorn in it. It's like The Final Steel or some shit. Like, yeah, like, those movies are horror, both, like, kind of horror movies that, like, you don't remember, but when you watch, it's like, I didn't hate watching this, right? It's like, that's kind of like, it's just a movie that'll be lost to the annals of history.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. There you go. So I mean, I think that most horror movies are in that realm, right? I think that most horror movies are enjoyable. I'm the kind of person that likes most things that I watch. I don't, have a bad time. And despite that, right, I think that we we end up rating a lot of things essential on here because we've been covering a lot of heavy hitters. I think that this movie was a movie that I also gave a 2.5 to. And similar to Bobby, I've had 10 years of people recommending this movie to me. I'm a big found footage fan. This is found footage. There's been so many times where I've mentioned, oh, I like found footage, and people have asked me if I've seen Trollhunter. And I've even, like, off the cuff recommended it to people because I have heard that it was good, and I was like, oh, you should probably watch Trollhunter. And now that I've finally seen it, I would say no, it is not essential. But I did have a good time with it. I enjoyed it. I don't think it was particularly great, but it's hard for me to find anything in here that I would say is essential, especially as a found footage movie. I'd have to say, oh, this is an essential found footage movie. This would be nowhere near, like, my 10 found footage movies you have to watch. It just wouldn't be. And so because of that, I have to say no.
I almost feel like this movie doesn't even qualify for the question of if it's essential. That might be a hot take.
Yikes, dude!
But I don't, because it doesn't even feel like a horror movie. This feels just more like I watched a Norwegian fantasy movie. And that was about it. Like, it really doesn't, to me, I almost don't even think I don't think it meets the minimum criteria with which, where it could even be in the discussion if it's essential. So no is my answer. That being said, that sounded way harsher than I think I meant for it to.
Watch the
I had a
spoilers.
great
I don't
time
like
watching this movie. I gave it a 3.5. I gave it the highest score on our cast here. I had a great time watching this movie, but I can't in good conscience think, all right, so we watched Trollhunter. This movie needs to be compared in terms of like its top level genre to something like I don't know, pick any of the movies that we've watched in the past 3 months or so. It just doesn't. It's one of these things is not like the other, and this is the thing that's not like the other. It just doesn't even seem to qualify. So no, it's not essential, but I highly recommend go watch it. It's a fun time.
There you go. What if?
By the way,
Oh,
By
yes.
the way, real quick, because I want to make sure I got the name right. The movie I was talking about with Viggo Mortensen and Christopher Walken is called The Prophecy.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Just so we know.
Never would've guessed it.
Another one that I've never seen. So,
You don't need to, pal.
Alan, a question for you because you
Fire
brought this
away.
up kind of as a sticking point. This movie is genre spoilers, I guess, for everybody listening, a dark fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I am of the strong opinion that dark fantasy is a horror adjacent genre and one that we will be covering on the course of the show at times.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, realistically, I think as the first dark fantasy that we've watched, would you say something different if you were considering that as the criteria, or would you still be say no?
So your question is, would my essentiality differ if I was including dark fantasy within the overarching umbrella that is horror?
That is what he's saying.
Exactly that. Because I do. I've approached every movie that way. And I approached this movie that same way.
I would agree.
I don't know. Off the gut reaction is no.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think so, because I think you can be in that adjacent category and do other things that would qualify you. Whereas this movie, I don't think meets those qualification levels. Like I don't think it's earned its wings per se. Does that make sense?
Can I second that idea just for a second, just to give my 2 cents? Because I gotta.
Yeah.
Fire away.
I think in the idea of things being horror adjacent, I think it's got to be things that are also lauded, like it's a dark fantasy that's particularly lauded by a horror audience. This movie gets lauded as a horror movie gets considered a horror movie by the horror, or even though I don't think it is, right? But like what I'm thinking about when I think of like horror adjacent stuff that would like automatically earn it, even though it's not particularly scary, is like a Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
Like Labyrinth is a movie that is like, it is horror adjacent, definitely. There's some fucking real scary moments in that movie, but like it's a Muppet musical, right? Like it's
Right.
not a scary movie at the end of the day.
Same era, Legend, maybe like the quintessential dark fantasy like movie. Have you
Yeah.
ever seen that? Ridley Scott's Legend.
Dark Crystal, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like those movies are very much dark fantasy and very
Keeping on the puppet side of things.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this movie doesn't qualify. It doesn't even qualify.
There you go.
It
I
didn't.
think it qualified. I just don't think it is.
I agree. I mean, I think it deserves its spot on the list as a horror adjacent film. I would just say no, not essential. That would be my thought.
Hey,
times, though.
speaking of top 10 Star Trek anime deck, where can we find you guys? How you guys been?
You can find me at a seal punter just about anywhere. Up until recently, I was feeling great, but then I hurt myself yesterday, so that sucks. Haven't really had time to do too much else. Corbin and I played the Halo Infinite flight that occurred at the time of recording this past weekend, and we're going to play again this coming weekend. Once you're hearing this, it's too late. You missed it. What the hell is your problem? You missed out on playing Halo. Come on now, step up your game. It was probably a great time, and we enjoyed it. But other than that, I haven't been doing too terribly much. It's been another kind of normal week. Not enough time to play nearly enough of the games that have been coming out. lately.
Yeah. Have you gotten anywhere in Deathloop?
I've got like
How many loops have you done?
like probably 5 or 6.
How many deaths have
Um,
you?
plenty more than that. You get 3 deaths per loop, basically. Well, kinda. Um, I took it literally, and you were making a joke, and I see that now. I hate you, Bobby. Uh,
Hee hee hee. Hee hee hee.
there's this whole system that lets you like keep your gear loop to loop. I've unlocked that. That's kind of like once you get to that point, that's where you're like out of the tutorialization of the game. And I'm past that point. I just it's not gripping me the way any other arcane game has, and I don't like that feeling because I love this developer a whole lot, and
Yikes.
I'm not feeling it the same as other arcane games,
It's a
That
big
is a
gig.
tough,
especially
that is a tough cookie.
especially when Psychonauts 2 exists, and that game's amazing.
Fair.
Not nearly the same genre, but like came out very similar, very close to each other, and that's what's kind of the time is between those two and Destiny.
I mean, once you're at this point, right, every game is competing against each other,
True.
regardless of genre. It's like,
True.
who's got time for that? You can find me anywhere at Corbangarang. My main place is Twitter, so if you like to tweet, follow me there. Let's have a chat. I play Destiny once a week. You can catch me on stream with Bobby. And otherwise, I have been playing Diablo 2 Resurrected. I am playing a Barbarian when I play half the time, and I'm playing a hardcore Amazon the other half of the time. I really, really love playing Diablo hardcore. Just that extra little kick really gets me going.
It's so much scarier.
Yeah. And then
Talk about horror adjacent.
Diablo, absolutely.
Diablo's straight forward. So
I would agree.
The first one, especially. And then I've also been I haven't mentioned it in a while. I'm still watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, guys. I am halfway through season 3. I am churning my way through it. It's crazy. This season is really good. If anybody wants to talk about Buffy, find me.
thank
Come
you.
join our Discord. What are you doing not in our Discord? Come on now.
talk
Links
about Buffy.
are always in the description. Come on.
Yeah, I think Bobby was going to mention it. Our producer, Mallory, has really been keeping me on my toes with Buffy. And then Warhammer, of course. I just submitted my very first mini to a local painting competition, and I'm super pumped. I'll probably lose, but I hope I win.
I want you to win so bad. I know you won't, but I want you to win so bad.
Thank you.
Speaking of things, I came in second place in our local friend group's season of 40K. I'm now switching armies completely, so we're going to see how that works. I'm going from a top of the line army two seasons in a row, to like playbooks in a row, to an army that was at the bottom of the barrel, but is now seemingly doing very. So we'll see what happens. I'm playing Grey Knights now. In addition to that, you can probably find me best at twitch.tv/theredweenie, where you will see the only video games I've played in the last 3 months. That is, I play Destiny one day at night a week for approximately 2 hours. I'm also doing a bunch of personal stuff. Like I said, I do some acting on the side. You don't need to know about that, so you don't need to know about that. Yeah, very busy other than that. But all my relevant socials where you can see stuff from me for my acting, or my socials, or me posing after I work out, or my dog, or me and said producer Mallory being in love. Twitch.tv/threadweenie is essentially my link tree.
Nice. And then, of course, you can find the podcast anywhere at Essential Scares. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd now, Facebook, of course. We're active on all 3 major social media platforms. Alan is posting on the Facebook all the time. Go say hi. I'm always on Twitter. Our producer Mallory, she does the Instagram a wonderful, wonderful job. Every single one of those, we have linked to our link tree, where you can find a link to our Facebook group and our Discord. Join them.
But you should
Come
join
say
them.
hi. Send us a message sometime. Ask questions. We're happy to record a video for you. Bobby has a furrowed brow.
Hey Corbin, just a wild question. You know, maybe you don't have an answer for it. Why do we have a letterbox now? You know,
That's a great question.
What was the reason
Yeah.
for that?
So we have a letterbox because, as you're listening to this right now, it's October 4th, and we're currently 4 days into our 33 days of Halloween. You can follow where we'll be posting about them every single day on Instagram and Twitter for the entire month of October and the first 2 days of November. And we'll be posting micro reviews from one of the three of us, or two, or even all three of us, every single day on our letterbox. And you should absolutely come and check those out. Watch along with us. We picked some pretty good movies. So
Free content.
yeah,
33
absolutely.
days.
Yeah,
I
it's gonna
can't.
be
I
great.
can't. Whoever did that was not thinking economically. We were
No.
thinking exclusively of our friends and our fans.
Yeah. Because who has the time to watch 33 movies?
Apparently, I do. So
Us, I guess, yeah.
Apparently.
Speaking of movies we have the time to watch, next week we are going to be watching Prince of Darkness. I've had a great show today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for watching. Alan and Bobby, thanks a ton for being on the show with us. People, if you enjoyed the show, give us a like, give us a subscribe, share us with your friends. I have been your host, Corbin, and this has been Essential Scares.
Spilden Saberbrut, baby.